Slow Ride, Fool for the City, I Just Want to Make Love to You, Third Time Lucky, Driving Wheels, Stone Blue. Just a few of the songs that my guest has played over his career in the band Foghat. And I am so honored to have one of my favorite bands being profiled here on A Chat With. And I look forward to having a good conversation. And welcome to the show, Brian Bennett.
Well, thank you, Sam. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. And my first question is, and I ask it because I was sent information on the band, so I know what's going on. But it's a great question, and I never knew anybody would really be that concerned with it. But what is Foghat?
Well, it was actually a funny word that Lonesome Dave and his brother argued about in a Scrabble type game over in London when they were teenagers. Dave said it's a word, and his brother, it's not a word. And so it always was a joke. And when the first when the band signed their first record deal, they were looking for names, and they went through a couple, and it got down to the wire. And I guess that's Dave came up, how about Foghat? They went with it. So
Now, I listed off a plethora of your songs that you guys have released over time, and it's not even touching the surface of the list. Um, the band has been around over 50 years, 53 years, I believe it is now.
mhm.
And I am so glad that you guys are out there and you addressed the band in a way that is for me appropriate, and that's a legacy band because you are a legacy band, similar to a lot of bands that are out there now. And right now, there seems to be a real boom with legacy bands. Foreigner, Journey, you guys, Styx, and on and on, and Def Leppard, and on and on and on. What do you think is making this music so popular once again, and bringing you guys to the forefront where you're playing these shows every year and having a great time doing it?
I think a lot of it is everybody plays really well. They have great material, and everyone grew up playing live. You started out small in the clubs, then moved to the theaters, then to the arenas, and then some of the big giant acts into the stadiums. And that playing experience live, I think, is the key to it all. I mean, I think that's why people still come to the shows. I just saw Styx not too long ago. We play with Cheap Trick. We're doing shows with ZZ Top. We did several last year. 38 Special, and everybody sounds great and has great material. So, and then it's the classic rock stations keep our music, in the airwaves. And I think, but mostly, I think everybody could play really great. I mean, that's everybody were great musicians. There wasn't a lot of, you know, special effects. There was no computers. It was a bunch of people with instruments and maybe a half decent light show. And, you build it up as you got more popular. But it was all about the music all through the late 60s up into the, through the 80s, really. But, our era was the 70s. And we look forward to seeing bands out there and touring with them. I would play a set and run out front and watch the other band play. So I think that's what it's all about, the musical ability.
And that's the thing with the 70s and the 80s with the bands. The bands all support each other. It's not like we're great, you guys go over there. You guys are like, you know what? We're a good band. We have fun in what we're doing. You guys are a great band too. So what do you say we do something together?
Yeah, and
And
that
and you
happens
and
a
like
lot.
you gave a good list of guys that you've toured with. Um, is there anybody that you guys wish you could tour with and it just hasn't happened for logistic reasons?
Man, it's hard to. The only person personally that I never got a chance to be on stage with was Jeff Beck, and of course we lost him, and that'll never happen. But I can't think of hardly anybody that we haven't played with over the course of the 40 years. And now it's like, and when you were younger and everything was, you're trying to, make your bones. There was a little bit of competition and this and that. But now it's almost like seeing old friends out there and family. When we get to play with another band, Joan Jett's great. We do George Thorogood shows. I mean, still to this day, and with everybody. And when we see them, it's hugs and, chat and conversation, talk about family and get out there and do some rock and roll for the people. Um, so it's really a great time. And I'm so happy that classic rock has survived. Back in the 70s, we figured, well, we'd be done by the 80s. You get 5, 10 good years, you thank goodness. But all this
Yeah.
time later, it's a pleasant surprise. And everybody, and we still enjoy playing. Foghat was always known as a live band first and foremost. I think in the 70s, and this is before my time. That's when Rod Price was the guitarist at the time. But I was in a band, Wild Cherry. Had an arena experience with that. And but you know, Foghat I think held the record for a couple years straight as playing the most live shows, in the world really. So it was always about the live music, and it still is for us. We love to record, we like putting records out, but what we really like to do is get out there and play.
Now, in my eyes, my feeling is that you guys love to be on stage, love to play your music, and love to make people happy and enjoy themselves and that sort of thing. Is the grind of touring getting to you guys yet, or do you guys see the end product, which is the actual show?
Yeah, our joke is we play for free, we get paid to travel. So that's sort of our rock and roll theme there. But in the old days, we used to do circles around the country, and would go to overseas, and we would be in a bus, do maybe 200 shows a year. So we don't hit it that hard now, but we still do 60 to 70 shows a year. We fly everywhere now. It's makes us able to go from coast to coast without having the limitations of bus travel, which you had about a 500-mile, daily distance that you could travel and still perform. And so I've done, we did that for decades, up and down and then all the way into Canada and down into Mexico. And so now we take it a little easier on ourselves, but traveling is really the hardest part. Getting up now, it's instead of getting in a bunk and falling asleep and waking up in the next city, we're up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning heading to the airport. So that's the hard part of it. But it's part of being a musician. I mean, we're lucky enough to be able to do it and have people still around the world. And we travel mostly in America, but we get over to Europe, we get up to Canada, and people want to hear our music. So we're more than pleased to be able to go and play for them. It's what we love to do.
And that's the beautiful thing. You guys are on tour currently. You're going to be doing a show in a couple days. Um, what could people expect from a Foghat show nowadays?
Well, pretty much close to 2 hours of fun. We like to, Scott, our singer, always says, you know, let's just concentrate on having a good time tonight. Everything what we're doing is right inside these four walls, forget the outside world and let's rock and roll. But we're going to do some, we'll always play the hits that people expect us to play, the 5 or 6 songs that everyone, loves from the legacy times. We play 3 or 4 songs from the new album, Sonic Mojo. And we do some old blues covers, and then we always on our Facebook and social media, we always ask our fans, what songs from deep catalog do you want to hear? Is it Honey Hush, or do you want to hear something that we haven't played in a while? And every year we try to change the setup because we have a lot of fans that see us every year, and so we always play, the main hits, whatever is current, which is our new record and which is doing quite well, and people are actually familiar with the new music, which isn't always the case. And then we dig up legacy tracks just for our own enjoyment. We try to play a couple songs from every album in the catalog. We could probably go on for like 4 hours, but limitations of the concert venues and everything else. But yeah, that's what we try to do. We try to spread it out and then bring some surprises to the set.
Now, we talked a little, very, very briefly, just mentioning in the title of the album, Sonic Mojo. At the beginning of this interview, I played I Don't Appreciate You off the album. And
Hmm.
as I told you off air um, earlier today, the Big Show Artist of the Day was Foghat. So we played a couple songs. I played Slow Ride and another song as well. Slow Ride being my favorite Foghat song.
Well, that's our
Um,
closer every night. So that's you can't play much after that one.
yeah, no, it's just one of those songs that just resonates with me. Let's talk a little bit about Sonic Mojo. That
Sure.
album has come out and actually in gangbusters. It's uh, a very high ranking album. How did the album come about, and how do you guys feel about the way it's being accepted?
well, we're really excited about how it's being accepted, of course. And I'm the producer of the album. I'm also the engineer and the guitar player. So we do it in our home studio in Central Florida. I have my studio set up there. So we get to record at our leisure. So it's not really like the old days where you got 2 weeks to make a record and then you're back out on tour. What we do is accumulate song ideas all year long. And it's been a couple years since our last studio record. We seem to do a live record in a studio, and that's, every couple years. So it's been 7 years since our last studio record. Um, and that's it. When we're doing sound checks, we jam, and if we have come up with a good little guitar riff or an idea, we'll capture it. Our sound man will, or these days on a phone. And so when we get together, generally in the fall and winter when our touring season is ending, we go to our band house, and I just sit behind my control desk and hit record. Once we'll work on an arrangement, and we just put it together. And once we have enough songs, I think we recorded 15 songs or 17 altogether and picked 12. And that's how we do it. Once we have a group of songs that we think hold together as an idea in a package, then we go into the process of doing the artwork and all that. And our manager, Linda, does all that business end of things. For us, it's just fun. What's great about having a band house and me being the engineer and doing it on our own, dime, really, in our own time. We Roger's a great cook, so he'll make dinner. We'll go out in the front yard. It's a 10-acre ranch, hit golf balls, and then record, and that's how it goes. It's pretty relaxing way to record, and that's the luxury of experience, I think.
And it's and I Linda has spoiled me rotten. I've got the album, and I've had an opportunity to listen to it, and we play it on my morning show. I play tracks off it periodically, and I play, of course, Slow Ride and some of the other songs as well. And on our Plan B show, it's actually being showcased this week
Great.
in its entirety,
Wow.
as well as an album we'll talk about in a little bit, which is a great live album. And we've been finding that we're getting a lot of positive response from the album. The album, to me, I find is very energetic. How do was that intentional, or was it just something you guys wanted that you guys could listen to while you're working around the house or at the office? Something that's
Yeah, I
great in
think
the
that's it.
background.
And right, and I think it was a good time record. I mean, a lot of the tracks we recorded maybe two or three takes. We rehearsed the song a lot, and then, but that's what we go for, the energy. And a lot of the tracks were recorded with just Scott on guitar and scratch vocal and Roger's drums. And and then but I wanted, as a producer, I wanted to keep it really straightforward. Two guitars, bass, drums. I was tempted to add horns to a couple songs or keyboards, but we're a four-piece band, and I wanted that record to represent exactly who we are, so that we could play the songs live and that would translate, correctly. And we found that out, that it is doing that when we start playing the songs live, the new ones. They're coming across really well because they were built around the kind of band that we actually are. In fact, in my mind, I had like the first Bad Company record in my mind, when we were making it. Keep it rocking, keep it sparse, not 100 guitar overdubs, just me and Scott playing, and Rodney on bass and Roger on drums. And I think Scott's vocal performance on this is great. We had some really killer songs. We even ventured into a little bit of country rock. I mean, Scott's got a little bit of twang, I guess, from living near Nashville, but we did some of our favorite covers on there. We did a Chuck Berry cover, and so it was just a lot of fun. And we do a lot of cover songs just for the fun of it. And every once in a while we'll get our own version of it, that's different from the original and anybody else's cover. I go, oh, that one fits us pretty good. Let's see what that sounds like. So we do that a lot, where we'll, do a song, a cover song and our own arrangement. And what was really special about this record is Kim Simmons, of course, the great Savoy Brown guitarist, and was a dear friend of Roger. Of course, they played together in the 60s in Savoy Brown. That's where Foghat came from, was three members of Savoy Brown started Foghat, Dave, Tony, and Roger. But Kim was the band leader back then. And, Roger had maintained their friendship all these years, and he played on our last studio album as a special guest, 7 years ago, which is where I became good friends with him. And we've done several live shows together, several in Canada, as a matter of fact. And when this new album was coming up, we asked him, "Hey, do you have any song ideas?" And we would like you to come down and play on the record as well, like you did the last one. Well, he sent us 4 demo tapes, and they were all great songs, and 3 of them ended up on the record. So he sent us a pretty bare demo, but great lyrics, and we worked the music up in our style. And then sadly, he got ill and passed away before he could even, come to Florida and guest on the record. So we feel sort of blessed to have some of his last compositions on this record, as another sentimental thing about it. And some of my favorite songs are his, and we do a Rodney Crowell song too, which is we do an interesting take on one of those. But to have Kim's songs on there means a lot to me, and particularly to Roger.
And like I said, it's a great album. I like listening to it, and like I said, I've been playing it on the morning show. And there's it's not the only album that's out. You also have a live album, Slow Ride Live. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Well, that was a concert that was captured in 1999 in Houston, and it was just after I rejoined the band. I don't know if we talked about it on air yet, but I met Dave in '89, and I played together with him for 4 years. It was called Lonesome Dave's Foghat. Roger was still touring with another version of Foghat at the time, but Dave had come back from England, and he had taken a several-year vacation, basically, and wanted to tour again. And we became friends, and he asked me to go on tour with him, which I did. In 1992, at the behest of Rick Rubin, the great record producer, he wanted to do a Foghat record. Um, and so he instigated getting all the original members back together. They were, Tony was living in Europe, and so they all got back together. And luckily enough, I just finished a European tour. Me and Dave were on tour in Europe with Molly Hatchet, and I became good friends with Danny Joe Brown. And so right in '92, Danny Joe asked me to join Molly Hatchet. All the original members got back together and toured for 7 years. They became ill around 1997, '98, and they had to quit touring for a while. But right around the beginning of '99, he called me up and asked me if I would come back to Foghat because Rod Price did not want to go out on tour anymore. Dave was in remission from cancer, and he wanted to tour. And that is the tour this record is. I mean, there's video of it already on YouTube around, from when it was released many years ago. But Cleopatra, I believe, is the company that's re-releasing it, and it's a really great up-tempo vision of what Lonesome Dave was like on stage, and just the energy and we played well. It was actually, I don't even know if I had might have been in the first 2 weeks of me being back touring, and so I thought I did pretty well considering I had just rejoined the band. But so it's a great live capture, and I hope everybody checks it out. But for me, it's very sentimental because that was the last tour and time I spent with my dear friend before he passed away in 2000.
Now, the albums are available on all the various platforms, and of course, there are hard copies that are available as well. They can purchase them on your website, I would assume.
Yeah, I think the live record is a Cleopatra product. I think their release date is April 5th, so not sure. I think they're in pre-order mode right now. Sonic Mojo has been out since November, and that is available on our site. That's the one that we're responsible for, and it's in high quality vinyl, and on all the digital formats and a CD, of course. And that we were so happy that they debuted at #1 on the blues charts and Billboard. And usually you get a week or two, in a chart position from pre-sales and everything, and then you fall off. But this one has really hung in there. We're still at number 10, 18 weeks into the release. So we're very excited about it. And it's from people like you, exposing people to the music on your shows. That means a lot to us. And but that live record, it's great. It's Lonesome Dave, and he always gave 125% on tour. And you'll see he has real short hair, because he was in recovery from chemo and all that kind of crap. But he still puts on a heck of a show. So it's well worth seeing.
So that is two great albums that can be picked up. The live album will be coming out April the 5th. The Sonic Mojo album is available now on Foghat's website. And
Hmm.
be sure and check it out. Be sure and get a copy of it. It's a great, great album. I want to thank you for taking time. And before I let you go, um, the tour is currently ongoing. Who's on the tour with you at this time?
Well, we tour by ourselves generally, and sometimes, depending on the venue, and especially in the summer, we do multiple band concerts, outdoor festivals. But I know we have a show coming up with ZZ Top. We have a show coming up with Starship, Mickey Thomas. We have another show coming up with 38 Special. We hope to see. I just talked to the Dax from Cheap Trick. I think we might run into them where you have a couple Kansas shows coming up that we're playing together. And then we do a lot of our own headline shows and theaters, what we have local openers open up for us. So every day is a little different. Shows are being added all the time. So foghat.com is where as soon as we get a new show, it goes right on the tour page. So that's the way to find out what's going on. We just added 4 or 5 shows in this past week. So it's right now, the summer's filling out.
Are you looking at possibly coming to Canada at some
We do
point?
have we do have some Canada shows on there, actually. I think we have 2 or 3 right now already. So and we're always looking to do that. So we get up there at least, 3 or 4 times a year.
Well, if you get to the Toronto area, I will do my very best to get out to the show, and hopefully we'll get a chance to meet in person.
Yeah, that would be great. And yeah, keep in touch with the office. If you see a show that you want to attend, all you have to do is drop us a note. Be glad to meet
Perfect.
in person.
Thank you. And I will be purchasing a copy of Sonic Mojo for my office,
Great.
and just something I can hang up. And I have it digitally, so I'm very excited for the album. Like I said, I really enjoy it. And I'd like to ask a favor before you go, if
Sure.
you don't mind terribly. Could you introduce the song I'm about to play to end this interview, Slow Ride?
All right. Well, this is Brian Bassett of Foghat, and you're about to get rocked with Slow Ride.
And that's another edition of A Chat With. I want to thank my guest, Brian Bassett, and this is Foghat, Slow Ride. And that was Slow Ride from the group that we're going to be talking about today, Foghat. And what is the significance of that song? This is the 50th anniversary of that song this year in 2025. And my guest is a member of the band Foghat, one of the newest members, the lead singer and guitarist, Scott Holt. Scott, how's it going, man?
It's going great, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. Now, as we record this, like I said, it is the 50th anniversary of the song. Um, Being a new member, you weren't there obviously when the song happened. Can you
Right.
tell me a little bit about how the song came about anyway?
I can tell you what Roger related to me, and that was that they were making the record. Um, Nick Jameson gave Roger a suggestion. He said, "Just go bang." So Roger was playing uh, on the one and three on the toms on the floor toms, and Dave said, "Well, I've got some lyrics that might go with this." And they just started jamming the tune. I don't I should ask him how many takes they actually did of it. The way he tells the story, it only seemed like they may have taken one take. And I do know that halfway through the song, the power went out and they had to come back a couple of days later and finish the song. So I keep trying to hear the gap where they had to stop and start over, and I can't find it. So, I asked him one day, we were riding in the car and it was playing. I said, "Show me where the power went out." And he said, and we were going on and so he goes, "Right there." And you can't hear it. So I mean, it was pretty cool though.
Class project. I'll see if I can find it.
There you go. Spot the mistake.
That's it. So anyway, that is kind of a tale of telling how Slow Ride was made, but that's not
Yeah.
just the only song that has been found that way. A
No,
lot of the
no, I mean,
songs are the guys you guys are rehearsing, or you might be recording other things, and
right.
things will come in, pop up, and you'll just be waiting between takes or something and just kicking around, and a riff will come, and you'll play the riff, and someone else in the band will go, "Hey, hey, 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 hey."
Yeah.
Is that the method that you guys use, or do you guys
Pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, there's
just
no hard and
because
fast rule to it.
it's like it's a melting pot of ideas from
Yeah.
everybody, is it not?
The cool thing about art doesn't wait to be invited. It comes when it's going to come. And we've been on stage doing sound checks and goofing off and I'll play a riff or Brian will play a riff or Rodney will play a riff. And we'll go, "Hey, that's kind of cool." And we'll get on the mic and tell the front of house guy, "Hey, record this, let's get a tape of this," or somebody's got their phone out. And the germ of the song starts that way. Or somebody says something, and you hear a lyric idea from what somebody has said. And if it's in public, you don't have to give them credit for it. So, but no, that's a joke. I would give them credit. But that's the beauty of art is it's all around us all the time, and all we got to do is be open to it and just ready to receive it, and you'll be rewarded.
So that's the thing that I've always gathered from the band, even back in the day before I got into radio and that when Slow Ride was just a favorite song, and I used to
Right.
listen to Foghat. It seems like a band that I would want to watch because I want to see what's next,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense. Like, I know I don't see you as a band that rests on your laurels, but at the same time, I see a band that doesn't put pressure on for what's next. It just kind of evolves as things go along.
Well,
Would you say that's
you have,
accurate?
yeah, I mean, you have the responsibility. Obviously, you've got a band with a 50 plus year history. So you're starting on a really firm foundation, and you have to respect that and you have to honor that. The work that Dave and Roger and Rod Price and Tony Stevens and Nick Jameson and later on Craig McGregor, the things that they did musically through the years are why Foghat is still relevant and why we're still able to go out on the road and play and have fans come out and hear us play. Those songs that we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Slow Ride. There's a reason why. That song's an iconic song. It's good songwriting. It's good material. It's a song that stands up. It sounds as fresh today as it did when it came out.
Now, as I mentioned a couple times already, you're the newest member of the band. How did you become a member of Foghat? Where did you like see an article in one of the trades and audition, or were you recommend like how did you get in?
We had a mutual friend that introduced me to Roger back in 2014, and he and I just hit it off. I went down to the studio in Florida where they do all their work at, and it was me and Roger and Brian and Craig McGregor. And I was down there for a couple of days, and we played Foghat songs and just hit it off real well. Then they were working on their next record. So I came back down and we started writing songs. That's how the Earl and the Agitators thing happened. But we were constantly creating and we just always got on. I mean, we Roger's one of my best friends and we like a lot of the same types of music. We like the same kinds of movies and books, and we just get on really well. Same thing with Brian. Brian and I we're real simpatico. We work well together. It's the first time I've been in a band with another guitar player. When I was with Buddy, I was backing him up, or then he would point to me and I would take a solo. But there was never like this interplay, really like I have with Brian. We work together and make sure that the chords are bigger because there's two guitars playing, so you got a chance to stretch the chord out, or your lines are empathetic to each other, and you play things that work off of each other's lines. And so that's a lot of fun. Rodney's an amazing bass player, great singer. So we have the harmony parts are in the band are just popping. And there's not a component in the band that's not, just at the top of their game.
So would it be safe to say, and I don't mean this, it's going to sound negative, but I don't mean it to, with Buddy Guy, it was Buddy because
Mhm.
well, it's he who he is who he is.
Yeah.
He is the marquee.
Yeah.
But with Foghat, it's basically a group entity, and you guys kind of know what the other guy's doing, and you can play off that.
Well, everybody's
And
got
there's
their
no
lane.
ego. There's and like you said, there's no egos involved.
Oh, there's no ego. There's no ego. It's Roger's band. I mean, Roger's the captain, and it's
Right.
it's his group. But he doesn't make us feel that way, and he doesn't treat it like that. It's a band. When we get ready to decide what songs we're going to play on stage, there's four opinions coming in. And when we somebody suggests something, everybody in the band has an opinion about it, or we'll sign off on it or agree to it or go, well, I don't know about that. What about this? Or, and we all know that everybody's looking for the common good of the band and the presentation. And nobody's saying, hey, let's do this because it'll get me more attention. But everybody's saying, let's do this because it's going to make Foghat sound stronger and better and more entertaining.
Yeah, and um, you guys are on the road a lot, and you're getting out
Mhm.
there. You got a good tour coming up. That's going to include some shows overseas and that sort of thing. Basically, how is the reception overseas for the band?
Well, it's interesting. This is going to be the first time that we've played in Europe since I've been in the band, and I don't think that they've played anywhere. I think they might have gone to Sweden one time since the band started. I mean, they played some gigs in England before the band came over to the U.S., but once Foghat came to the U.S., they basically stayed here and just toured here and toured here and toured here. And so our presence in other overseas hasn't really been that active. So this is going to be the first time that we're going to some different countries. And I'm excited about it. I'm a little bit, curious to see how with the current global climate, how they're going to be receiving us. But I hope it's positive.
Well, there's a few other bands that I've had a chance to talk to, Blackstone Cherry and a few others that have been overseas, and they say that right now it's really an exciting time for bands over there. So I think you guys are going to have a wonderful time, and I think that the reception is going to be great because that's the one thing about music that I like is that it transcends everything.
Yeah.
You can make it political, but you have to make it political. You can make it religious, but you have to make it religious.
Well, to
You
me,
know,
music.
but basically a song to me just says, you know, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm excited, I'm, you know, and it just shows how you're feeling at the time of the writing of
Mhm.
that song and the message you're trying to get out. And I think that's the great thing about music. And, you know, I think you're gonna have a wonderful time.
I can't wait to be there.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Earl. Good old Earl and the Agitators.
Right.
Now, like I said, you guys are pretty busy with shows and things like that on the road so much. How did you find time for Earl?
Well, that was the problem. That's why you don't see much of Earl anymore, is because we tried to figure out how to make it work and coexist with Foghat. At the time of Earl and the Agitators, Charlie Hune was the lead singer of Foghat. I was the lead singer of Earl and the Agitators, but everybody else in the band was Foghat. So we would do shows where Earl and the Agitators would open for Foghat, and the only difference was the lead singers would swap out, and the rest of the guys are doing like 4 hour gigs instead of a 2 hour gig.
Right.
So it was set up to fail. I mean, we weren't going to get a van and a trailer and go do a club run because Foghat works so much that didn't make sense. We couldn't do shows opening for Foghat. We tried a couple where Earl and the Agitators would play the night before, um, but it was just a concept that just couldn't sustain itself. So while I love that record and I love the songs and I love the memories of doing that record because it was done in such um, a strange way. I mean, it was basically me and Roger and Brian um, putting the record together. So it's two guitar players and a drummer, and then Brian would circle back and put bass on some of the stuff, and I think Craig came in and put bass on some stuff, and and then the live tracks that are on there, of course, are Rodney playing bass. But it was just a record that we just sort of we had the songs first. We wrote the songs, and then we just figured out how can we best get these songs on a record, you know.
So there's a possibility of Earl and the boys showing up down the road, but right now we're focusing on Foghat.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
one
you
of the
never
great
know for a
things,
while.
yeah, Earl's lurking in the bushes. I know
You
he's
never know.
waiting, you know, just peeking up, going, "Can I come out now?" But one of the things that I found very cool, and it was right around the time that you joined the band, was uh, for the little EP that was made with the auto engineering graduation project.
Mhm.
That was very cool. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about the new album?
Yeah, there's a program in Nashville at a studio. The studio is called Dark Horse, and they had a recording project that they needed a band to do a project for them so that they could learn their engineering, so that they could sit behind the board and figure out how to do stuff. And they contacted Roger, I guess. I'm not sure. I guess it was Roger that they reached out to, or maybe it was Linda. And they said sure. And so once again, it was me and Brian and Roger. And I don't know where Rodney was, or maybe Rodney wasn't with us yet. I don't know. But we went in their studio and did it like I just described. It was, you know, two guitars and drums, and then we Brian would overdub the bass, and he's an excellent bass player. You know, Brian can pretty much do everything. So and but it was a fun project, and some good stuff came out of it, and some good relationships. I mean, we stayed in touch with some of those people, and we've worked with them since then.
Now you have a new album, Sonic Mojo. Tell us a little bit about that album and some of the tracks that are on it.
Well, that's the first official Foghat album that I've had the opportunity to work on from start to finish, and I'm real proud of it. It debuted on the Billboard chart at #1 and stayed on the charts for 39 weeks, and it was at #1 for a lot of those weeks. Um, it has four songs that our friend Kim Simmons wrote for us, and then the rest we got some cover tunes that we kind of did some different arrangements on, and some stuff that we wrote, and just the thing that I'm most proud of is when we play the songs live, um, they the audience reception is as strong as the older material. So my goal, my personal goal was to make sure that we created a body of work that would fit in with what came before. I didn't want us to do something that sounds completely out of left field for Foghat, or if the Foghat fan that's been there since the first album puts it on, they go, "Who is this band? I don't understand any of this." And it's a, there's a tall order because you, like we were talking about earlier, you have to respect the history of the band. I don't sing like Dave. I don't play guitar like Dave. Brian doesn't play like Rod and doesn't sound like Rod. We've talked about this all between the four of us a lot. There's the opportunity that you have to sort of try to be an imitating a parody band, a tribute band, some kind of, like if I tried to sound like Dave and tried to play like him, and Brian was just trying to sound like Rod, and 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 I think that would do a disservice to the legacy, really, because I think you know, Dave's approach, from what I can gather, Dave's approach to Foghat was he played like Dave and sang like Dave. When I came into this band, the only person I knew how to be was Scott Holt. The only person I knew how to play like was Scott Holt. And I was just praying that it would fit. I was praying that I could figure out a way to make what I do work. And the guys were patient with me and let me figure that out. And um, it was for me personally, it was hard going to start with, just because it was so different from any way I'd ever worked before. And you got these iconic songs, and nobody wants to hear your jazz interpretation of Slow Ride. They want to hear the Slow Ride like they remember from FM radio back in, the
Right.
70s. So you have to kind of acknowledge that, but at the same time, I was raised musically as an improviser. We never, when I was with Buddy, there were never set lists. There were never, the arrangements to the song were head arrangements. They came on stage. They developed on tour. If a new song got into the set, if Buddy started playing something that we didn't know, we would end up developing an arrangement, and then that would become consistent. It might not be the way the song went on the record that Buddy was thinking of, but it would be something that he could work from. And that was how I was brought up. So when I got in a band where, okay, there's a guitar break here and it's 8 bars, and you don't play 9 bars and you don't play 6 bars, you play 8 bars. And if you don't play 8 bars, it derails everybody. So you've wrecked the song and now you got to stop and start over.
Right.
So it's a lot more, um, for me coming in, it was a lot more pressure. And I've had some catastrophic experiences on stage with fire. I
I
mean,
can
some
imagine with the
legendary.
amount of career you've had.
Well, the first gig that I did with him was actually I was filling in for Charlie. Charlie couldn't make a gig, and so I'm gonna fill in for Charlie, and it's a show. We did a show with 38 Special, and so we it was out in Colorado. So we fly to Colorado the day before the show. We're in a hotel room rehearsing, and I'm trying to get these songs under my fingers and you got to learn all the lyrics, but then you got to know all the guitar parts, and you got to have all this stuff together. And you know, uh, uh, we have a rule in Foghat that we never drink before we play. I think that would have been one show. It might have been better if I'd been able to have a drink before we played, because I was scared out of my mind. I was so nervous. And the I made it through most of the show relatively well until we got to Slow Ride. And if you're going to screw up a song with Foghat, the
That's
song you
not the
don't want
one.
to screw up is
Yeah,
Slow Ride.
no, no, no,
Classic.
no.
So the way, and guitar players will understand this, I hope, or maybe it's just me. The way the drum intro starts, the drums are on the 1 and 3, and but when I was hearing those toms, it sounded like a kick drum. It sounded like the 2 and the 4. So I would come in on the offbeat every single time and could not understand how to turn it around. And you can't play it that way. It because everybody else is coming down in an opposite place. It's kind of like a dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Roger started the beat. I came in on the wrong beat. Everybody came in on the right beat, and instead of me being able to catch it, I stayed on the wrong beat. We finally had to stop. And Rodney God bless him, he just fell out on the stage, flat on his back, and broke the tension. And we started the song over and made it through. And I was pretty convinced that they would never never call me again. That was the last I was going to see of them. But
We want to thank you for your time. Here's your souvenir T-shirt.
yeah, exactly. Slide my plane ticket under the door of my hotel room and then see you. But
Yeah, I've had
they
that in sports, so I've had
yeah,
that
well,
trip.
sometimes when you invite yourself out of a situation, they just tell you goodbye.
I always I own us. I'm part owner of a semi-pro football team, and I'm always tormenting my players. Being an owner is just the toughest thing. There's things that you have to do that you don't want to do, and I'm really, really sorry. You're gonna have to stay. You're gonna have to play for us. I'm sorry. It
Yeah,
just is.
right.
But yeah, no, I understand that totally. But I'm glad that it worked out for you. And
I am too.
we're actually going to play a song off of Sonic Mojo to end off the interview. And the song that I've chosen is Driving On. Tell us a little bit about that song, and then I'll give you
Well,
your life back.
that's one of the ones that Kim wrote for us. And the demos that Kim sent, of course, Kim was sick at the time, and the intention was he was going to play on these songs, and he got so sick, and then he passed away before we had an opportunity to play with us. So we had these four demos, and they were pretty bare bones. If I remember right, it was maybe acoustic guitar and Kim's vocal. So we had lyrics and we had like a chord progression. And so there was a lot of room to kind of figure these things out and develop arrangements and come up with what we were going to do. And I remember specifically driving on, Roger and I were sitting there, and as musicians, a lot of times you need a relative point. You need to figure out some way to, you have that short code word vernacular that you go through that. And so I looked at Roger and I said, Slim Harpo. And that's where we started. We channeled Slim Harpo, the great blues man, and kind of gave it that sort of funky Louisiana boogie type thing. John Lee Hooker had a big career with that type style. His was a little more gut bucket, a little heavier. Slim Harpo was a little bit lighter, and that song kind of starts out lighter, but it immediately goes into that roaring boogie when you get to the guitar solo that Brian plays so amazingly on slide guitar. And then it and the other thing about that song and the whole album, the whole Sonic Mojo record, is Roger had a detached bicep when we started doing the record, and he was going to have surgery to have it reattached. He was in tremendous pain, but he wanted to do the record before he had the surgery because he didn't want the surgery to interfere with us getting the record done. So the way the recording sessions would go were we would start playing and we would play until he was gassed. And when he said, "That's it, I'm done," that was it. This particular song, um, he if you listen to the song, the first verse has got like sort of one fill at the end of it. The second verse has two fills at the end of it. The third verse after the guitar solo has like four fills at the end of it. And there were a couple of songs on the record like that where Roger just was power playing and just doing some incredible stuff. And nobody knew that he had, you can't tell it from the record that he was hurting. But he's the Iron Man. He's an amazing, I pray for his constitution when I get to his age because I'm watching what he's doing and trying to copy him because I hope it's going to make me live longer.
Well, with that, we're going to play the song. I want to thank you for coming by. But before I do, I just want to remind everybody listening to be sure and visit foghat.com. There's a lot of great stuff on there, tour
Yeah,
information. You guys are playing, I believe Saturday is your next show,
yeah.
the 30th, and in Minnesota. So I want to wish you guys the best for the tour.
Thank
And
you.
I was looking at the tour, and I just want to let you know the country is called Canada,
Oh, I know.
and the
I love
province is
Canada.
Ontario. So
I
just
love
please,
Canada.
pass it on
Yeah,
to those that need to know to get your butts up here, so we
absolutely.
can enjoy the shows as well. But seriously, I do appreciate you taking some time, especially on this day. And I thank you very much. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. And I'm hoping we can do so when you get back from the tour.
Hope so too. Thanks a lot, Sam.
All right. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening. We're going to take a break and pause for just a few moments. But to take us to the break, it is from Sonic Mojo. This is Foghat and Drive It On. You are listening to A Chat With. Take care. We'll be right back.